Hello everyone, I'm Jax the Reviewer, you're the audience, and this is my Godzilla Retrospective. Welcome to my review of Godzilla 2, better known as Godzilla Raids Again. Following the success of the original Godzilla film, Toho were eager to release another Godzilla film. Godzilla Raids Again was therefore released just 1 year after the original, and it would show the first time Godzilla would fight an on-screen battle with another kaiju, something that's followed the series even into modern day. This would also be the second and last Godzilla film shot in black and white. So this film has 2 kaiju, returning cast, and is even building on an established brand. How could any of this go wrong? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's start the movie. We start off with footage of a nuclear blast, as the narrator states that the nuclear bomb has started a new era. Seemingly fitting, as Godzilla, an allegory for the nuclear bomb, was responsible for starting this, the Showa era of Godzilla films. However, the film moves on to argue that the latest threat facing man is missiles and rockets to Mars. It's quite strange when you think that this film came out just a year after the original. Bear in mind, the original focused so heavily on man's destructive capabilities with the nuclear weapons. Why is it suddenly such a big deal with these other issues? Just a year on? Have we really sorted the nuclear issue just a year later? So it's a little strange to see them dismissing nuclear weapons so early on, focusing more on these missiles and rocket ships. And besides, the opening plays very little relevance on the plot at all. The plot doesn't really revolve around this issue, and this plays off more like the opening to a Twilight Zone episode than Godzilla 2. The credits roll over footage of towns and planes being destroyed. This plane crashing looks impressive, but it actually isn't given any context so far, so it feels kind of strange on a viewing. Here we're introduced to our protagonists, Tsukioka and Kobayashi, who are on the hunt for... tuna. Why are we watching people hunt for tuna? We are also shown that Tsukioka is dating Hidemi Yamaji, and what follows is some of the cringiest dialogue I have ever heard.
Are you tired, my dear?
Not too tired to go dancing with you tonight.
All right, all right. Come to the house early, you see. Papa's loaning me the car.
Someday, I'm going to be in love like that.
When Kobayashi's plane malfunctions, Tsukioka must find him. Seeing him on the island of Iwato, Tsukioka lands to go help Kobayashi. This scene kind of reminds me of the opening to Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. However, not 10 minutes in and we get our first look at Godzilla as he towers above them in a shot that's actually reminiscent of the original film. But Godzilla's not alone, as he's fighting another kaiju named Anguirus, or Anguirus, or Anguirus? It has many pronunciations, so please forgive me if mine doesn't match your own. Anguirus is a kaiju who will follow this franchise closely. He becomes a mainstay in the Godzilla series. And I will say, he was a perfect choice for Godzilla's first battle. Anguirus is based heavily off of the Ankylosaurus, another dinosaur, making him a reasonable match to Godzilla, whose origin was said to be that of a dinosaur. His near satanic design is really interesting to me, and having that strong armoured back makes him the perfectly equipped tank of a kaiju to go up against Godzilla. Can you imagine if they led off this series with Godzilla vs Mothra as the first kaiju battle? I feel things would have gone a lot differently. The fight is quite cool, but it's heavily blocked behind rocks. At first I thought this was to create suspense, like how the original Alien film avoided showing the real monster until near the end. But no, you get full body shots a minute later. So instead it just blocks our view of the violence. And people complain about the fights in Godzilla 2014. As the two monsters duke it out, our protagonists hide in fear, until the fight leads to an abrupt end as the two roll off a cliff, and the suits definitely aren't as well made as the last film. Our protagonists fly back to Osaka, reporting on their discovery of this new kaiju. They point out that Anguirus is indeed a relative of the Ankylosaurus.
Look at this photograph.
We also discover that on the board of researchers is Kyo Yamane, returning from Godzilla, King of the Monsters. It's fun seeing him return. I just wish good old Steve Martin had made a return too. Go Steve! Yamane elaborates on the origin of the kaiju. According to him, the world used to be volcanically hot, and through this grew monsters who strived in the heat. Creatures like Godzilla and his atomic breath, or the heavy-built Anguirus. But due to high radiation damage to the planet caused by the sun, they all hibernated underground. These creatures returned from the underground when awoken by man's mass use of radiation, as suggested in the first film, and are now virtually invincible as they were built for such harsh climates in the heat. As the lovebirds are discussing being brave in the face of danger, we get one of the famously worst dubbed lines in history.
I'm glad you're here. You're so brave, Tsukioka. Absolutely, darling.
Ah, banana oil. I was desperate and worried and anxious.
This line is just plain weird, trying to find a word that matched the lips of the original Japanese acting that also had a meaning for the word silly. The solution was the term banana oil. Who thought of that one?
Ah, banana oil. Banana oil.
The biggest crime of this film is its use of tell not show, rather than show not tell. Things that could have been shown to us through exciting visuals, like they were in the original, are instead explained through heavy dialogue. We are told that Tsukioka doesn't feel brave, and we are told that news has gone all around the world. I mean, look at this.
All units on the alert. We are waiting your general alarm and will instantly organize the attack. Roger.
We should have received at least one report by now.
I know. The news has gone around the entire world by now, and everyone has joined in the hunt.
Why are we told people's reaction to there being giant monsters in Japan, rather than shown the fear and the anguish that they're going through? I mean, in the original, it wasn't like this. Look here, where someone has to state that Godzilla is more destructive than the atomic bomb. I mean, really? Couldn't you just show us that, like they did in the original film? You know, the one that was shot 1 year before this. In the original Godzilla, we didn't need to be told Godzilla was a metaphor for the atomic bomb. We knew because of the striking visuals. We weren't told there was tension between the love triangle. We were shown it. Godzilla King of the Monsters may have been controversial, but its reliance on visuals was striking. And in essence, that's what a giant monster movie should do. Rely on strong visuals. I'm not asking for constant fighting, just more visual cues, and less 10-minute dialogue sessions between characters that haven't even earned my interest. With the news Godzilla may not enter Osaka, suddenly people are full of cheer. This scene is weird. I mean, it even copies from the original film. Both have the scene where people are celebrating in public when they feel they are safe from Godzilla. But in the original film, this was because they'd finally found a way to kill Godzilla. In this film, they are just celebrating because Godzilla may not be attacking Osaka. And so people seem way too happy over this small occurrence. I mean, look at this. Come on guys, there's still 2 huge monsters on the loose. Quit dancing! It's also worth noting that at this point there's a really long song and dance scene where it can get so boring that you'll find yourself talking about literally anything other than what's happening on the screen itself. What is that? City yourself.
Oh, Oliver Twist.
Yeah, what is it?
That's what I sing.
What are the lyrics?
Consider yourself as a family or something like
Something like that. Eventually I became so bored I kinda hoped that one of the people would just turn out to be a fish alien like in Final Wars. At least then the plot would be moving on. If one of them doesn't turn out to be a fish monster, I'm gonna be pissed. Godzilla double crosses them and heads straight to Osaka. The alarms begin to siren and people are running and panicking. And the most interesting thing about this is this guy. What's his story? Get out of here, mate. Forget the drum kit. They attempt to defend themselves against Godzilla through enacting a large-scale blackout. This is a clever nod to the fact that both Japan and Britain used this technique during World War II. And more stuff like this would have gone a long way in making this a more respectable film on its own. 3 tanks enter the city as the aeroplane circles it. It's a case of history repeating itself as the government does not learn from their mistakes in the last film. As Godzilla comes into frame, we really get a good look at his new suit, and we really get to... God, jeez, really? That's him. He looks like a bootleg you'd find in a dodgy market store. This suit was made a lot lighter than the one in the previous film, as the physical involvement of fighting another kaiju was too demanding for the other to handle. But come on, Toho, is this really all the effort you could do? As well as that, on the American edit of this film, Godzilla's roar is made to sound like Anguirus's. I know this is because in this origin, Anguirus and Godzilla are part of the same biological family, but it deprives Godzilla of his brilliant roar, and it also makes it quite confusing during fight sequences as you can't tell who is roaring at what time because they sound so similar. However, the military is smart this time. Using a collection of flare lights, the military play on the kaiju's sensitivity to these lights, making Godzilla panic as the JASDF successfully cause him to retreat, merely damaging one statue. Another subplot running parallel to this is the prisoners who are being evacuated from the prison. It's a completely weird tonal shift to be taking place in tandem with the Godzilla scene, as this goes full Silence of the Lambs. The prisoners overpower the guards and lie to the driver, pretending to be the guards. Yep, it's a shame that driver doesn't have a window right behind him to see what's going on. That would be really helpful. It quickly develops into a high-speed pursuit, as the prisoners and the police both hijack cars in pursuit of one another, and boy is it tense. Whoa, careful there, Vin Diesel. The convicts crash into a tower, causing a large explosion. This explosion draws Godzilla back, and to be fair, the special effects are great here. Seeing the army fire heavily on Godzilla and seeing him just stand his ground is really enjoyable. And the crashing plane looks brilliant. I mean, hold on a minute. I recognise that plane. So that's what all the opening credit footage was, just shots from the film. Well, what was the point in that? Did the editor just see that plane crashing effect and think, oh yeah, that's so good, I want to play it twice. Anyway, the explosion draws Anguirus to Osaka, and Anguirus looks really cool. His suit hasn't dated very well, but as I said, his design here is intimidating and really interesting. For reasons I just can't understand, they decide to mimic the Steve Martin situation from the first film, in which our protagonists are perched on a higher tower, providing a commentary of the situation. Where Steve was doing this to help Western audiences, I have no idea why it's here this time. When audiences just want to watch the action, it honestly detracts from the scene, and it removes a lot of the tension. Wait, did that guy just dab? There are attempts made to recreate shots from the original film, such as this one. But the problem is the new shot doesn't have Godzilla in it. Because of this, we don't really get a sense of scale that was shown by actually seeing Godzilla tower over the running civilians. The commentary in this scene is poor, and it doesn't reach the tense impact of the original. It lacks Raymond Burr's strong presence.
I knew it was daylight. I was surprised to be alive. The odor of scorched flesh permeated the air. The sight of all the helpless human wreckage snapped me back to stark reality.
It was a nightmare of horror. And as she turned back from the bitter sight, her heart was heavy with sorrow.
Man, I never thought I'd say this, but I miss Steve Martin. The fighting between the two kaiju is strong, though I will say Anguirus uses some dirty moves. What exactly is happening there? Because that looks like... The miniatures are really cool, and seeing giant buildings like this destroyed is really fun. Godzilla slams Anguirus into shit, he doesn't care. Damn, look at that. For two guys in giant suits, it's pretty amazing to watch, especially considering the limitations at the time. And although the campy fighting may not please everyone, true kaiju fans will have a special place in their hearts for it. However, the biggest tragedy of the American edit is that it lacks the Godzilla theme. And because of this, the score is weaker, and that's especially sad because I praised it so highly in the last film. I feel like that damages some of the fight scenes and alleviates a lot of the tension. A standout moment is when Godzilla and Anguirus lay waste to a pagoda. This move is quite common in the Godzilla films and will become a staple of the series. When Godzilla finally beats Anguirus, he ain't ready for any sequels. He goes full on overkill on Anguirus. Kobayashi is told he will return to tuna hunting. And then, well, this happens.
Your dad is right. Business comes before romance, my dear.
Business? All men are like fish in a woman's net.
I stand corrected, dear.
She got you there.
And like any good kaiju film, we return to what truly matters. The tuna hunting. During a company party, our protagonists are notified that Godzilla has returned. Tsukioka joins the search for Godzilla, and after he spots Godzilla, Kobayashi and the army take flight to join him. As the military begin to arrange their plan of action, the film really begins to drag. The film is no longer than the original, yet this one feels hours longer. A combination of the long dialogue scenes and the fact that very little is happening leads to an unbearably drawn out finale. At first the bombs do little to no damage, but Kobayashi flies over Godzilla to keep him distracted. However, Godzilla fires his breath at Kobayashi's plane, killing him. They soon realise that the way to kill Godzilla is not with bombs, but with an avalanche, one large enough to encase Godzilla. Having Godzilla trapped in the ice like this depicts him in an embarrassing way. He's no longer this unstoppable force of nature, and he's now sort of goofy. The jets return to fire a fresh round of missiles at the mountain, triggering a new avalanche and burying Godzilla up to his neck. Tsukioka then fires his own missile, burying Godzilla completely, thereby finishing the job. And with Godzilla frozen in the ice, that is how he would remain for the next 7 years. Godzilla Raids Again was definitely an interesting sequel. Like most sequels, it didn't live up to the hype of the original, and the standards the original set were quite hard to get to. But it is worth crediting that this sequel did spearhead a whole series of Godzilla films that would have kaiju fighting kaiju, and it brought that to the show. I think that gives it a place worth crediting, even if it falls apart in what it was trying to achieve. The dubbed dialogue is a joke. Where Godzilla King of the Monsters may have had some issues in translation, for the most part it had a respect for the original film's translation, and it felt like there was some at least simply kind of compelling characters, whereas Godzilla Raids Again suffers in this department. Godzilla Raids Again uses the most simplistic dialogue and empty characters to progress a near vacant story. But that can be excused. Not all kaiju films are character-centric and need enhanced dialogue. I mean, sure, some kaiju films do it and they do it really well. Monsters. But some kaiju films are little more than brawl movies, where strong writing is traded in for great violence. But here, Godzilla Raids Again fails again. Godzilla and Anguirus fight only twice, with the first one being not only hard to see, but extremely short. The second fight is significantly better and does a brilliant job. However, this is an 80-minute film, and having one strong fight doesn't cut it. As well as this, the ending is in shambles. Godzilla looks ridiculous, the scene drags on, and the death of Kobayashi has no weight to it. And finally, the lack of the original score kills any excitement I would have been able to scrounge up for this final scene. Overall, I can only give Godzilla Raids Again 5 dabs out of 10. From what I've heard, the Japanese original edit of this film is much stronger and highlights some of these themes that I felt were lacking in this film. So don't worry, I will try and check that out at some point of convenience. I'm honestly so sorry that this film is so depressing, and I did want to love this movie. Coming out of King of the Monsters, I was blown away. I didn't have the highest expectations for this film, but to see the sequel to such a great film go to waste is just hard. And so I hope all of you come with me to my review of Godzilla vs King Kong, because I can assure you that's going to be a fun review. Whether or not the film is actually good itself, I bet we're going to have a good time with that one. And now for my weirdest moment of the week, where I'm going to look at some of the funnier and goofier sides of this film. Today I'd like to look at quite a famous scene from this film, made famous by Cinemasca's Godzillathon, although these shots have always stood out as comedic to me. These shots are supposed to be tense as we rev into the third act of this film. Instead, Godzilla is inanimate, looking like a harmless toy. It takes you out of the film in all the funniest of ways. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate all the support this series has been getting, and hope to see you next time on my review of Godzilla vs King Kong.
Banana oil.